All right, man. Well, first off, congratulations on this past weekend, man.
Hell of a
Thank
weekend.
you.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's just get started. Give us your name, where are you from, age, current chassis, motor builder.
All right, Daniel Armstrong. I'm from Davis, North Carolina. Currently in Kannapolis. Um, 32 and Phantom Racing Chassis and Todd Miller Racing Engines.
Mhm. Sweet. But so let's get into some of the stuff, okay? So you kind of kicked off, I guess, kicked off year with a killer weekend, kind of, especially on the Vega portion, I believe, if that's correct.
Yeah.
Really, really stellar weekend down there in Daytona. So I kind of want to talk about that a little bit.
All right. Um, yeah, I don't know. Daytona is one of those places it can be really good to you or really bad. I've been there uh not every year since they run the flat track. I really enjoyed the stadium. I kind of wish it would go back to the stadium just because of what that place was. Um, but the flat track, I mean, it's very similar, same surface. You never know day to day, class to class, what the track's going to be like. So it's kind of a guessing game the whole time. But the last few years, it's treated me pretty good. The year before, we won the um, little memorial race they had there, and
Yeah.
then we done really good on the Vega day, and we're inconsistent on the Reapers. Just missed it in the last class, but had a good weekend overall. And Todd, they ended up winning all four the last day. So together we had a really good weekend.
For sure. Yeah, you definitely you made it easy on the fantasy. Yeah, you watch the first feature and it's like, all right, I think we got the fantasy locked in right there.
Yeah, I need to learn more about that because it was funny. We left Possum and Tommy Balder messaged me and said he won like $180 this past
Yeah.
weekend, and I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. So I guess I need to learn more about
And I got some insider trading, let the race
that.
do their stuff. It's pretty cool though, since a lot of these racetracks have been going to the MRP. It's got that fantasy thing, so they'll do like t-shirts, hats, like a money pot.
Next thing you know, we're
Right.
gonna have the Pete Rose of karting. Somebody's gonna get banned from the Hall of Fame for throwing a race. So we go from Daytona. Great year so far, and then you show up at Possum Kingdom. And what what was the initial thought rolling up and seeing that the track is soaking wet? And where did it go from there?
Um. Well, so being that I do have, I had last this past weekend. I had a junior one, two, junior three. I had Jennifer Seawright and the Maxx Daddy with me also, and then her brother James ran Champ Buggy. So I think I had to fix 12 sets that morning.
Because you had to buy
And
at the track, right?
yeah, you got two sets per driver, or per class, or per your two classes. So um, I spent half the morning fixing tires, which so we got there Friday night just so I could weigh everybody out and just solely focus on tires on Saturday morning. So I was there at like 6 o'clock. I think I was there before the gates opened. I mean, the gate was locked, and we were sitting there waiting to get in. But Friday we were there when the rain come through, and they were actually able to get on the track pretty quick after the rain, and so I knew it was packed in pretty well. But you never know with Possum. When Clint had it and it rained on Fridays, I mean it was soaked like 30s. You need tires in the 30s. So that's in the back of your mind. I really didn't sleep a lot Friday night. Just when I lay down, my head starts spinning of what to do. There's 1,000 scenarios you run through your head. If you go one set, don't go. If you go one
You
set,
only
then
get
you're only
two, you know?
yeah, you only get two, so you're left with one. I mean, is that an option, or what do you do? And I kind of started thinking about it weeks in advance. Kind of bouncing ideas off of Todd, like back and forth, and just kind of decided, Saturday morning, but luckily was patient enough, to see the track was coming around. The sun popped out a few times, and that kind of the track was actually phenomenal for the weather, and
Looked
that's kind of
very
what that
good.
place needs, because it's so big and it's a lot of track to work and prepare. And I think with the banking too, watering it, it runs down. So it's hard to keep water on the track. So overcast, sprinkles throughout the day. I mean, really, it was kind of the best thing for that surface. So I think we ended up with a really good surface, a really racy surface. So, um,
And I know here in the past few races they've had at Possum, one of their big struggles has been the dust. It's been kind of an issue. So it kind of was a perfect storm, with the overcast, the drizzles and stuff like that.
yeah, it really was. I mean, honestly, I know everybody was kind of worried and scared, and I was the same way. I didn't want to go waste my time, waste all weekend, and especially having two sets,
Yeah.
that's scary. But really, if you knew how the weather was going to play out all day, I think there was people that stayed home, or just didn't travel because of the chance of rain. But really, how it worked out, I mean, it was honestly perfect. So,
Yeah, for sure.
and that's whether you win or lose. I think the racetrack itself, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better racetrack for there.
For sure. And so let's talk about it, man. I personally I did not get to see the champ race, but I seen both the Prelude and the flat cart Maxx Daddy. Kind of crazy things unfolded in front of you. You obviously had the cart to be there. It's just some crazy stuff. So kind of tell what's going on in those last couple laps right there. It's
Yeah,
Possum
I'm
Kingdom. You
guessing
got to
you're talking
set,
about the flat cart
yeah, the
stuff.
flat cart first. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Honestly, just to talk about the day, went out and practiced, and was, I think Shay was fastest and I was second fastest. And that was really shocking to me that I was that good that early. Or knew that I had speed. And the first qualifying for the Prelude, I was in Group A, which I don't. It always seems to be that way for me. I don't know if it's my name, number. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it seems like I'm an A more times than not when it comes to races like that. But I was in A out of 42 carts, and I think I went a 57, and the pole ended up being a 30 something. But to qualify 10th out of Group A, I felt like I run a really good time for when I went out. So I just kind of set back. Of course, I have the kids and everybody else, but to I just kind of set back and thought I was pretty good. So when it come time for the Maxx Daddy qualifying, I ended up running a really good time.
That's
And
better,
that's
right?
good. That's good for Possum. I mean, you say you don't want to start on the pole, but I guess when you have two sets and you're on the pole, I mean, it's you kind of got to run that set, I guess.
It's hard if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind
Yeah,
of mindset,
exactly. I
you
mean,
know.
you want to have a chance, and that place, that's all you're looking for. But to have speed and to just be able to be there at the end. I mean, that's what that place is all about.
Yeah,
Some people like it, some people don't. I mean, some people dread going there. I always kind of look forward to it. I've always
different.
enjoyed that place. I've run really good there in the past. So, yeah, you just kind of got past early, fell back, kind of patiently ride, and you end up back up front, not even really passing anybody. You end up back up front because it seems like everybody wants to lead. So you just kind of ride and put yourself in where you think a good spot is. And, sometimes leading's good there. Sometimes it's not. So I knew coming down to the end, I knew it was just us three, Chavous, Carter, and myself. And I was actually riding with like 10 to go thinking, and it's funny, but, I was sitting there thinking, Matt's got a cart leading, Todd's second and I'm third. And, we're all really close. We text 3 or 4 times a day in a group chat, or, sometimes more or not. But, I'm sitting there thinking, well, one of us is probably going to win this.
And if none of y'all do, there's a big problem.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, it's just one of those, for us to be really close friends and as close as we are, I think, with each other, it's pretty cool that it come down to our three carts.
Yeah.
And just to, you're riding in third thinking, well, Carter's going to pass. I mean, it's the Maxx Daddy. He's not going to not try to pass. So there really wasn't any need to make a move. It was just kind of let him do his thing and be there to capitalize if they get together, or, if it slows him down,
Make your move off of his move.
I have a run. So, um, they got together. I kind of got into Carter a little bit. It knocked him up into the loose stuff, which luckily, we had a big enough lead on the rest of the field. I mean, he was able to finish second, but, it worked out to where I didn't have to block the last lap. Kind of best case scenario for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, it's funny because we say luck. I think you make a lot of your own luck sometimes. I think there is luck involved. But you also have to be there too. So,
yeah, no one puts you in third. You put it yourself.
Right. Yeah.
To be
And,
there at the end.
you got to have the speed to be there.
Yeah.
Obviously. So, I mean, it's the last 2 or 3 weeks ago, I guess I ran really good at Liberty. I had, I won the last two, the 375 and 390, and I took the weekend off in between. Just, I knew I kind of was riding a little momentum, and just kind of sit back and wait on the Maxx Daddy and try to, capitalize on that. And, we was able to. So,
yeah, it's like winning it early in the last round in the playoffs with NASCAR. You get to really focus on it,
Yep, that's right.
So, I mean, just a huge day, 3 poles, right? 3 poles.
3 poles. Yeah.
3 poles, 4 for 4. It kind
Biggie
of,
bag.
yeah, when Wendy's on them, I didn't get to see the champ, but how was the champ? I know that is, usually champs are on top of each other with the drafts and stuff like that. So I didn't get a chance to watch.
Yeah, the champ actually ended up being a really fun race. We set on the pole, and Todd, I think Matt texted Todd saying, hey, we needed a motor to run, needed Wendell's motor to run the buggy. And Todd's comment was like, why do you need to run buggy? Like, why are y'all running buggy? And, but he was, he got the motor for us, and I'm never going to turn an opportunity down to ride with Matt. That's, as close as we are now, and in the years past, and I've never really drove for him. But to be able to do, ride something that he's working on or he's doing the tires for, I'm never going to turn that down, I guess, as far as the champ buggy goes, because I can run the buggy. So I'm going to jump on that opportunity every time I can. But it was crazy fast. I think we set on the pole by 1/10.5, 2/10, no draft. It was really good, a really great piece all weekend. So I think I got passed early in it too, and kind of just was riding and ended up falling back even further. I think I went to like 15th or 16th, which is bad, but down there it's really not that bad.
As long as you stay together,
not in a 50-lap race.
Yes, 50 laps.
So, to come through, I mean, the first 4 or 5 I picked off pretty easy. And then I kind of got in a spot where I couldn't go anywhere. And I was kind of worried. I think it was Barrett Terry. I just couldn't get by him. I'd lay off of him, try to make a run. Nothing I did seemed to work. But then I went back and I was able to see the video, and I had no help behind me. So I don't know if that was it, or
hitting a brick wall of wind with no help.
Yeah, I don't know what why exactly, but he's like the only one I really had trouble passing. So then the caution, the break came, and I think I was behind Nibel, and I think we were at 7th and 8th or something like that, and just kind of locked onto his bumper and ended up, I think he was first and I was second. I just locked onto his bumper, and he passed, people in front of him would pass or get together, and we'd get by him. And I don't know, 10, 15 to go, he was leading, and I was good enough. And I credit the cart. that, the buggy was good enough to be able to push him away from Chase and, the 4 or 5 that was trying to draft with us. So then it was just kind of, when I knew it was us two, it was just kind of try to make the right move at the right time and hope that, he doesn't get back to you or you don't wait too late. Because the longer you wait, obviously the more they're going to block. So it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of thinking and overthinking that can go into it.
In both parties. I mean, you get antsy if you're leading. You want to make it as wide as possible, and you're trying to figure out where to get around them. So
Yeah. So it's just, it's one of those. Um, it was actually, it turned out to be a really great race that I can use to show the kids that I help how to plate race. And we can talk about that later. Because I know one of the questions was about helping kids and the kids and all that. But, I think that's it's definitely something I can use to kind of show them, sometimes patient and riding can get you in the right spot. You don't have to be 100% aggressive all the time.
for sure, yeah. And just to cap it off, man. I mean, just making history, being the first one to be able to do the double duty on it and get both of them. Thought that was pretty cool, and I think you and Shay are now tied for the most Maxx Daddies, and that puts you at 4. Um, but I want to know, how do you win 2 Maxx Daddies? It's 6 grand, all the trophies and the helmets and stuff. And then, all right, let's go race these Preludes. I think it was like what, 500, 1,000
500,
for the,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
500 for the
Yeah,
Preludes. And it's like, I know you talked in your interview. It was like, I don't even want to run these Preludes, and you go out and sweep those too. So what? Why did we just start
yeah.
celebrating at the
So,
trailer and load
so
up?
I knew Matt would, I knew Wendell and Matt, they would want to run I mean, you're on the pole.
Yeah,
You cannot run that. So that was, and I joke and say a lot of times when I run buggy, I'm 50-50. Like I'll win one and either crash or, it's just, that's buggy racing. But, there wasn't no question. I mean, I didn't even ask if he wanted, I mean, I knew the answer to that. So, we run it and kind of the same thing happened, fall back, get to come through them. Actually ended up, I think Simmons got with Simmons and we run the leaders down and, kind of the same scenario worked out again, to where it just ended up being 2 carts and you make your move and just hold them off. But, for me on the flat cart side, I'm sitting there going, well, I've won, I've won
the
the race.
job
We
is
came here to
done. The job is
win.
done.
You know, is $500 worth going out there and tearing up your stuff? Just, and then you've ruined your good day. So, but once I won the buggy, I was like, well, I gotta, like you gotta
Gotta get
try
the
to
broom out. You gotta get the
go,
broom.
you gotta
Yeah.
at least go out there. Um, so that was, yeah. And then it just worked out kind of the press replay of
Same fashion.
Yeah.
the Maxx Daddy. Same. And I think Carter started 9th. I was 10th. I pushed, I think we ended up getting separated. I think Scruggs got by me at one point. And my stuff wasn't quite as good in that race. So, but it was getting better, and I was able to close back in closer to him with I think 2 or 3 to go, and was right there again for Carter trying to pass and that whole situation.
But tell
So,
me if I'm wrong. It looked like he had gotten the mud, and that's what killed him.
you're saying Carter got
Yeah,
yeah, I would say more dust than mud.
yeah,
I mean, he went very low.
he did.
You
Yeah, he
know,
sailed it off in there.
yeah, yeah. And I guess as you know, getting older, 10 years ago, yes, that's the same thing. But, $500 in racing against that person every week, I don't know. I mean, I'm happy. I was glad. I mean, it worked out for me, but, I just, I don't know. It's one of those, I mean, it's a split-second decision. I mean, you're there to win. So, it's racing, I guess.
Yeah.
But
It's just frustrating with the two same people. I'm sure.
yeah,
I'm
and
sure
I mean
Shay wasn't too happy
that's
with it.
truthfully how racing is today. I mean, it's every class, every lap. I mean, if you don't take, somebody's going to do that, same thing to you. So
Yeah.
it's just the way it is today.
For
Yeah.
sure. Eat or be eaten,
Yep.
Yep.
Well, man, congratulations again. Very impressive weekend for you.
Thank you.
So yeah, man, let's take it back to the beginning, man. Who got you into racing? What were the early days like? Tell us your story.
Um, all right. So I was born in 92. I want to say my dad's might have, I didn't ask. I guess I should have. I think it was 90. It might have been 1990. I believe he started in karting. He actually raced four wheelers before that. And
Really?
I think his story was he had a buddy that he worked with, I believe, that had bought a go kart, and they were racing over at Millbridge, which is the same one that everybody sees today. It was nothing like that back then, but
Yeah.
I think he stopped over to watch, and I think his story was there was some guy that was talking to him junk about his four wheeler not being able to outrun a go kart, or the go kart outrunning the four wheeler.
Mhm.
So he stopped in, and I think he ended up getting hooked on the karting side. And so honestly, since I can remember, or even before, I've been around karting. And it's actually funny. I think, well, it was at Liberty the other week. One of my dad's good friends, Alan Richardson. People that are listening probably know him as RD. We were at the fence just talking. I think Jaden was practicing, and we were talking about me sitting at the fence when I was little, 3, 4 years old, and I wouldn't leave the fence. I would watch every race, every heat race. He said, and I've heard the stories before, but he said that riding home, they'd be talking about, who won what class. Well, I didn't know names, but I knew numbers and colors.
Yeah.
You know, I I live, breathe, and eat it. Watch, from the time could remember, I wanted to watch. I think I got my first cart. My first actual cart was like a yard cart, but it was it was a frame that I think my dad had somebody put like drop spindles and lower the axle, raise it up off the ground.
Yeah.
So I had my first cart, I think right when I turned 3. I got it for Christmas, and my birthday's the 29th. So I guess technically I was 2, but 3. And I just rode in the pasture constantly. I think as much as I could, I was riding. And from there, my dad took me to Woodleaf on Sundays. I don't know how many laps I've made around that place. But it's a lot. So just to, from there, that's kind of how I got started. My dad was in it, so, I wanted to do it just like him. So, yeah, really, there's never been, I played baseball, when I was little growing up some, but, I always wanted to be at the racetrack.
Just never gave you that fix, huh?
Yeah. Well, I like baseball, and looking back, I kind of wish I would have taken it more serious, I guess, or put more effort into it now that I'm older. But yeah, at the time I just wanted to race. So
Yeah, for sure. And so, I've known this nickname for a while, but where did it come from, and how? We have two nicknames. One nickname we were told about by somebody else, but Stretch. Like, where'd Stretch come
so
from?
I don't the stretch. I don't know how. I don't know how that really come about. I know. Obviously, it comes from the Stretch Armstrong doll.
Yeah.
That's
That
what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's from the 70s, maybe. I know my dad had one. I think he said they ended up tearing it apart. But yeah, so that's where it comes from. I remember the nickname kind of starting, when I was when I was around Eddie and all them, Miss You and
Mhm.
all them on Thursday nights. That would have been, I may have been 10 or 12. Maybe, I'm probably around that age.
Early 2000s, kind of.
Yeah, like 02, 04.
Mhm.
I don't really know the whole story. Like, it just kind of, I don't know, somebody said it one day, or I really don't know. But I know it's from the doll. I actually have a helmet that has the Stretch Armstrong doll on the back
Really?
of it that I had when I
That's
was, I don't know, 15 or something. So,
good.
um, but yeah, that's where the nickname came from. Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
then
This
yeah,
this
you take it.
so Matt contacted me to get in touch with you, Ken, because I was looking for your Facebook or something,
Right.
even before Matt texted me, and he said if you need any help with like some background info, just let me know. And I was like, hey man, you could give me like some questions or something. And he told me he calls you Draft Master.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was in I think when I got back to the trailer, after I think I won the third one in our little group text. It was like Draft Master 3 for 3 or something. But yeah, I don't know. I think it all goes back to the time frame we were just talking about, the 8 to 12.
When Matt was at Eddie's and stuff.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
not that, just that I mean that time, when that window of racing. I hate to say it, but that was probably, I mean, I'm very fortunate and lucky that I grew up in the heyday of karting.
Yes, you
Um,
did. 100%.
it's a lot different nowadays. My first state race I went to was Southern Pitt in '01, and it was I mean, it was this North Carolina state race. I think there was 54 junior ones.
Oh,
And that was 8 to 10 year olds. It wasn't 8 to 11. I mean, it was 8
it
to
was the
10.
age it used to be. It was blue
Yeah,
plate,
and
you
it
know?
was, you couldn't run two classes. I mean,
Yeah.
and it was one class.
Yeah.
It was
There was no
junior
junior pro.
one. It wasn't junior one light. It wasn't junior one heavy. It was junior one.
Yeah.
So
Good old purple plate.
yeah, so we drove 4 hours to a race. That there's 54 carts. That it's just one class. And I was actually lucky enough. I won my first state race. Actually, my mom has a VHS of it, I believe. But Stephen Daniels and I drafted about the whole race, and but I think that's where he kind of gets that from. The reason he says that is because when we go to Possum, or we go to Iron City, or we go to drafting racetracks, I think it puts me back in how I grew up racing. There was 15 to 20 kids that could win any
Yeah.
weekend, that was nose to tail. Now, not every weekend, but, the states and nationals, there was 10 to 12 that you couldn't make a mistake. If you made a mistake, you didn't win. And, back then there was no money, it was points. So, finishing second or third might not have, you might could have chanced it, but 6 race series, you'd take the second or third
For the
and
points.
go on to the next one. Yeah. So I think just learning how to race that way, and learning the draft, and how to pass, and when to pass, and how you make runs with, a restrictor plate that when you pull down, you go backwards, you don't go forwards.
Yeah.
That, and all that comes from my dad. I mean, we spent countless Sundays watching. My mom would record me, and watching mistakes that, I mean, if I did one thing right, I did three things wrong. I mean, it
Yeah.
seemed like, I mean, maybe not, but back then it was like, we would slow down and rewind and watch in slow motion, and I hated it. But looking back, it taught me how to race. It taught me when to make moves. And I think that's where Matt, I try to put myself in the right spot at the end of races. And I know that's what he's getting. I believe that's what he's getting at with that nickname.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
I feel like back then, I'm not saying, people now are dumb, but like the IQ had to be a lot higher when you're racing for those points and stuff like that. And the patience had to be more like
Yeah.
it was
Well,
bigger on the line,
and I don't. it's funny because I joke with Todd all the time, and I want to say that back then, and like I said, I was very fortunate and lucky enough to grow up racing in that era of, there was 50 kids and 25 of them could win a national. And I think, and it's not taken away from the kids today, but I really believe the racing was harder back then. As for the juniors, and I think you can almost say the opposite for the adults now. Just the aggression and the money, and I mean, from lap one, it's 100%. I think when I come into the adults, it was starting. I've kind of went through that transition with it, as far as the money races and there's no holds bar at the end. I mean, I think that the points and the money, and now there's no points. Nobody cares about points, a jacket, or a trophy, or it's all about that one race. So I think that growing up in that through those years really helped me. And it's very limited that we get, like, you go to Possum or you go to Iron City, and you can, I kind of get put back in those situations. But I think that's where I really, I do really good, and also, but at the same time, you still got to have a fast cart. I mean, if it's not fast, it doesn't matter. I mean,
it don't matter how much skill you got on the
exactly.
racetrack.
Yeah, you still have to be fast. So, but you can control the race a little, not completely, but a little bit. So
yeah, you got a couple more cards to play.
Yeah, exactly.
So, so going back to the beginning, who was that mentor for you that you're striving to be for your junior drivers? Going over driving tips, what to expect, and just overall knowledge.
Yeah, I'd have to say most is, my dad. He spent a ton of time with me. It was really just us. And I guess looking back, when we got into the early days of, starting at 4 or 5 to 7, it was just local, like Woodleaf, Indian Land, Tyro, let's see, Buck Creek, maybe. I'm just trying to think of some of the places we ran at. But I mean, he took me, like, we'd run Woodleaf Friday night. We would run Tyro or Indian Land on Saturday, and we'd go ride on Sunday. I mean, he put a ton of time into my racing, and trying to teach me how to race and all that. And then, as we moved on, I think, being around Eddie Mishu and that whole group up there, Tim Fischel, Matt was actually in college at the time, and he was working there. But Eddie, I think Eddie he would cut some of my tires and do that stuff, for the national stuff. And then, obviously, like me and Dad, we'd go run them and scuff them and all that. But he would, I think my dad, Eddie, and we can talk about this later, but even Todd is the three people that could push me to be better, and would say the right things, or knew what I needed help with, or could see from the outside looking in on the track. And Eddie was really good at watching my hands. And I think Todd does the same thing. I think Todd watches the cart also, but I know, like, back then, Eddie he would watch my hands, and he could tell me what the cart was doing. But he would also, and my dad was the same way. And my dad really, we'd go ride. He would put 15 pounds of air in the tires, to make it free. But he wanted me to feel what that felt like, but then also be able to drive it that way. So if if you miss the tires in the race, you can still make the best of what you got. So I mean, I definitely say number one's my dad. And then, Eddie and Tim and just being around, everybody that was involved in that whole group back then. I would say that's, for the kid when I was little, those were the people.
For sure. Yeah, I think that's such a huge thing you talk about is like, putting the 15 pounds of air. I think that's a big thing that's kind of missed nowadays. Is like being comfortable with being uncomfortable on the go-kart and
Yeah,
kind of
and,
having to make it work on like
and
on the seat of your pants.
right. And I don't know. I mean, tires are such a big, the feel of the cart then versus now is so different.
Very different. Yeah.
Like if you were too tight back then, you were too soft. And, now if you're tight, odds are you're too hard. Like
Yeah.
it's backward. Like, the chassis have changed, but I think more the tires have changed. And I think that's, like the feel. And even the last 10 years, I mean, I still try to find sometimes that feel that I had, 10 years ago. And that's not really what's best today.
Yeah.
So it's challenging, but yeah, I mean, as a kid, my dad really worked with me on being able to feel and tell, he wanted me to tell him what was wrong, and then him go back and that, at that time, practicing or whatever, he would know, like, all right, this is way too soft,
Yeah.
but he
Or
wanted
way
me,
too loose,
yeah, he wanted me to be able to tell him, because if you can work together, and I mean, it's especially with, as a kid, if you can come in and say what's wrong, I mean, you're beating half the other ones
Yeah.
just in that alone. So
Just knowing what to be able to say.
yes.
So it's kind of like a perfect run into this one right here. Time with Eddie. Your time with Eddie in I believe what junior two, early junior three time.
Yeah, honestly, from junior one, I think I ran my first year with the state races that I was talking about. That was I ran Johnny Bartlett Motors, and I actually
Okay.
run an Undertaker cart, and then I think my dad had actually. My dad was running some of Eddie's stuff, maybe, or I don't know exactly how it all went, but I do know going into the last state race that we had a Michigan motor, and had ran it at some local races. But my dad is the type that is very loyal. He's gonna, we started with Johnny, and that we finished with Johnny in the state series. But then after that, I think so. It had been late 2001 is when I started running Eddie's motors, and then I think 2000 first to 2002 is when I rode I think it was the Matrix.
It was
Eclipse.
Eclipse was like it was like Phantom.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
Eclipse was like, was the brand, or however you want to say it. And then I think the cart that I ran 02 to 04 was called the Matrix. And we ended up winning 2 national championships with it. I won some state stuff, state series stuff. And yeah, I mean, I was with Eddie till I was 17 or 18, I believe. So
It was a long run.
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
And just being able to spend that much time with obviously such a legend of our sport had to be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I want to say, I had my driver's license up, or 15 or 16, I would say. I spent, Trey, his son, like every summer we went to the beach together. We'd stay, spend a week. I'd be down there a week or two with them. And then, I actually worked at the shop. I think back then, or then it was like Matt Chavous was there.
Yeah.
But I would get up and I would go to the shop and tear motors down, or clean up or do whatever I needed. And then if anybody knows Eddie, he would come in at 1 or 2 and
They
go
said he
get
had those
lunch.
banker hours,
Yeah. He would come in time to go get lunch, and then but yeah, so I spent quite some time up there, and learning that side of it, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, so I was with Eddie a long time. So
For sure. Yeah. And being such a, well-rounding yourself, even if it was just tearing engines down and stuff like that, not building them or anything, just being more well-rounded just makes you that much better,
yeah, yeah. So
So now we're going to talk about what probably has, other than the Eddie time, was probably your biggest stint. You know, everybody knows it, the Big Red Machine, number 96. Just kind of how that deal came together and when that started and how that experience was.
yeah. So going back to my days with Eddie, Jeremy Ashley, had ran, I think, junior 3 when I was in junior 2. And um I'm not 100% sure. I know, I think I had even mentioned to them, either Gary Freeze or Jeremy, and I think I'd even said something to Todd. I want to say I did say something to Todd about, driving for him. And I think at the time he was trying to ride again a little bit. And he said he really wasn't looking for somebody to drive. But then, you know, I don't know if it was Jeremy or Gary that ended up, I guess talking to him again. And I'm not 1,000% sure on all that, but I mean, I know it would have been the end of 2012. He called and asked if I wanted to drive for him. And of course that was, absolutely. So I think our first race was the Chili Bowl of 2013. And we went and we ended up winning Animal, I think. And then it took off from there.
So you were pretty fresh in the ride when you won the Lucas Oil race at Paradise.
So when I won so we won the Tri-State, the 20,000.
Yeah.
I think we went to the Chili Bowl. We went to Carnesville, and the only reason I remember that is it was just my dad, Todd, and me when we went, and we were on the pole for the pro race. And I don't know if it was my dad or me, but we left the oil out of the motor.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
Yeah, so we come around to take the green, and I knew something was wrong. Like, I mean,
It's clicking and clacking too much.
I've raced enough to know that, so I pulled it to the infield, and of course, I was worried to death that, Todd was going to be mad, and, which I think he was upset, but I don't remember him saying a whole lot. But yeah, so that was the second time. And then I think our third race was Paradise for the 20 grand.
Yeah.
So
I remember
yeah,
T4 Films had went out there and videoed it and stuff. I remember seeing it. They gave away Terry Labonte was there. They gave away a go-kart and stuff.
Yeah, I think the Terry Labonte, I think that was actually the Lucas Oil race.
Yeah.
But that was the same. Was that the same? That might have been the same year, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, or that I think Lucas Oil might have been 2014. That honestly I can't remember, but
they all kind of run together, now.
Yeah, that spanned. I know Harold had a little picture of me and Todd, and like I know we won the 20 grand, we won the 5 at Providence, and then we won 10 somewhere, or it might have been 5 somewhere else, because I think it was like 30 or 35,000 and in three weekends, or whatever. So
a really good run. I remember those. Yeah. That was in the heyday of the Triton.
Yes, absolutely.
And back when animals still mattered,
Yeah.
Good old Animal. But funny story, I remember when we had Todd on, just talk about how y'all dynamic was a little bit was when you were at Daytona, I believe it was last year or the year before, and you went and sat pole, and they were like, "Oh, Todd Miller's got the Big Red Machine running right," and he's like, "I'm in the camper. That's all Daniel."
Yeah. So that's it's kind of funny, like you talk about Todd, and Todd is a very he's all in or all out. When he's racing and he's committed, he's one of the hardest people to outrun. He's one of the best. But now he'll just up and quit in a heartbeat. The racing side of it.
Yeah.
And I've experienced that 2 times, I think. That we made a really good run from 2013 through 2014. There wasn't many times that we lost. I mean, that was a really good 2 years. And it just kind of, he said he wanted to, needed to take a break and wasn't going to race. So, I'm like, I was sitting there like, well, we're winning everything. Like, why would we, not? But why stop? But so 15, I ended up starting out. I ran with Hunter Curtis a little bit, did some stuff on my own. And I think I just kind of got going on my own. And I remember, I think we went to State Line and we might have been starting to test the recon maybe. And he's like, I'm gonna ride with you. And I was like, all right, that's fine. Yeah, we'll go there. Well, we go up there and we win, I think, everything that day. And, then it's like, well, just bring the tire, bring it up here. So, I think 2015, we ended up running again. We ended up winning the Big O that year. So yeah, I mean, so then all of 15 we raced together, and then after that, I think, he decided he wanted to take a break again. So I went, on my own again.
And I think 2019 it came back full swing.
Yeah,
Huh?
I think the end of 2019, I was with Gary Freeze from 16 to to 2019, whatever the dates were.
Yeah, because Scott was there. Scott was there.
Yeah, Gary had went on his own about the same time that Todd, we quit racing again for the second time. And I was all really close with Gary while Gary was at the shop, at Todd's. And he's like, hey, we want to go race. We can, I'll help you with motors. I'll go with you. We'll race. And I was like, so that came about, and we had pretty good success on my own. We won quite a few $5,000 races, all that, at Carnesville, and run pretty good through those years. But then Scott came along, and he had kind of just went through the same thing with Todd. Of they raced and then they quit, and he called me. He's like, hey man, can I come run with you? And so he come along, and then we ended up going back to Todd, both of us. So yeah, it's kind of, and then that's where I've been ever since. But really the last, it's funny, that story, because I mean, I had just taken my helmet off at the scales, and they're like, Todd Miller's hit on something. I'm like, I was like, yeah, he really did, but, also at the same time, I don't care. I just want to win. So it didn't really bother me. It was more, funny, like just kind of joke about, but, so the last, I don't know, 2 years or so, I mean, I've kind of, really, I mean, I've been on my own. I mean, don't get me wrong. He would ride with me to the racetrack, or he'd always be around the pits, or, he would jump in, if I got busy with the kids and needed help on my stuff, and he would jump in and do whatever I needed. But really, I mean, all the stuff was at my shop. I did the tires, through that 2021, 2022 on. I mean, it's really been, myself, but I guess because I ran, I didn't change from the red and the 96, everybody just assumed that it was Todd's. So, but yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of, that part of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess just spending time, same thing with Eddie, spending time with Todd and stuff is it, definitely probably elevated and learning new things and processes like that, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely, you learn a lot, being around people like that. It's been around the sport for so long. Todd, it's funny, and Matt and I have talked about it before. Todd is the best at, if you give him 10 sets of tires, 9 of them could be 3/10 off. But that one set, he will bolt on for the biggest race, and he will be the best when it matters. I've experienced it. I mean, we went places and sucked all day and win the last one.
Yeah, pro heavies out where it's
And
faster than
his
the field.
motto is, only everybody remembers the last race. Like nobody remembers the warm up or and he has a knack for it. I don't know. And I've been around him. I mean, I've tried to figure out his madness, and I don't really know that there is anything. I think he just hits it, and he's just good at it. So yeah, you learn a lot from him. It's funny, back to like 2013, I don't want to say I was intimidated by him, but I was 19, 20, and it's Todd Miller, it just,
it's crazy,
Yeah, I mean, it's so like, I remember riding to the racetrack and we wouldn't say two words. So like, but I knew at the shop they watched Duck Dynasty. So like, I started watching Duck Dynasty. So like, we had something to talk about, just because, but, and also I think Todd puts a lot of pressure on whoever's driving. I think whether he means to or not, but how I grew up with my dad and how my dad, expected me to do the right things on the racetrack and make the right choices and decisions. That never really like that part of it never really fazed me as far as, that driving, but just being around him, I was, gun shy, I guess.
Yeah. Usually it's the opposite. It's like, oh my gosh, he's expecting so much out of me, but it was
that
like a perfect fit.
was normal. That was normal. It's just the hanging out part, but now, it's completely different. Him and Harold both, I respect them tremendously, and not only what they've done in karting, but the men and fathers they are, and just look up to them a lot.
Absolutely. I think it was when we interviewed Harold, he had mentioned that y'all were at some race and y'all had a brand new Triton, I believe, or something like that.
That was I think that was the 20 grand race, I believe.
Y'all only ran it for the feature. That was the first time I touched the track.
Because he wanted me to make sure that I said that this weekend it was a new kart. So that's one thing they've good or bad they've beat in my head is that, or they have me convinced that you can ask the parents I help. A lot of times it's the Maxi National and the Maxx Daddy, because normally they're about 6 months apart. You take a new kart to those races. And I don't know. They have me convinced. So I some people might say it's not, but you gotta think everything's new. It's probably going to roll the best. It's going to roll the best. It's going to, that is the best it's going to be.
So were you on new metal last weekend?
Yeah.
So, and going, if any of the listeners remember, back in from 2012 to 2016 with the the Tritons and all that stuff, that was the thing. It wasn't really big tire cycle, it was chassis cycle.
Right. Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, it was
the good old PRC.
It was 10 races,
swap shop.
A new one. Yeah.
And like Todd and them, they're at Todd's at a great place to, because I've witnessed it. You win, and somebody calls on Monday, he can sell a kart in a heartbeat. For me, it's like I kind of got to ask around, like, hey, do you want, would somebody want this, or to move them? For Todd, all somebody's got to say is, oh, it's Todd's, and they want
it's the big red machine. You
they
want
think
this one?
they think it's different. It's better. But being around it long enough to know and to ride it, put them together, it's the same one that you can call and buy, but it was Todd, so it's better.
If it needs splits or anything, it's figured out. It's set back to factory before it's sold anyway. So.
No. Man, it's funny. There's I was around long enough up there hanging out that carts are the same, motors. Like I would be willing to say that sometimes, my motor wasn't as good as others just because that's how it turns out.
Yeah.
But for them, they're in a hard spot because I mean, it's his living. It's what he, I mean, if I built motors, I mean, I would probably spend more time on mine. I'd want to spend more time on mine. But yeah, I mean, it's there's nothing special.
Yeah, for sure. He has that mentality of win on Saturday, sell on Monday, you know that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's his living. That's what
Yeah.
he. I mean, that's what pays his bills. So
For sure. I mean, back in the day, that's what it was. I mean, back when you had Ron Moon, you had all those guys. I mean, it was literally they had to go out and win those races so people would want to get on their motors and stuff.
yeah,
Carrying that mentality out to today is totally understandable.
yeah.
So we talked a little bit about you testing the Recon. What was it like testing the new Tricon, and what else have you tested for fans?
So honestly, since the Triton on, I believe I have been a part of all the carts. I've at least rode them before they came out, or whatever. I know the Recon. Todd and I did a lot of the. If y'all remember the video Harold made of the pile,
Chopping them up.
I think I rode every one of them. Sometimes one weekend, 2 weekends. What I can say, what I'll say about testing is it is very hard. It's hard, and it's hard on the group. Because you want to go win. I mean, that's the number one goal. But then when you're testing it, you're taking a cart to the track that you really don't know.
There seems like there's like an alternative motive that you got to pay attention to when you're testing compared to everybody else.
Yes. And you can stay over and ride. You can stay over after the races. You can stay over Sundays and ride. And I think we took maybe 3 carts to Triple T early last year to ride. And one was a tenth and a half better than the Recon. And we were like, thought we hit on something, or thought it was good, and we took it 2 or 3 times and couldn't make any speed with it. So it's just testing is hard. Like it until you do it. It's just I don't know how to really explain it other than you've got to race it. You've got to, and I think one thing nowadays is you need several people to ride it. Before you, I guess, like you want to release or whatever. And saying that, like going back to the Recon days or coming, with Harold designing the Recon, I'd say half of that pile you probably could have won with. But Harold is really smart and knows what he's looking for. And, he'd be like, well, I don't like this, or, I want to try this. And so just the process it goes through to come, for him to come out with a cart, it's a lot. And it can be stressful. But I think this last one with everybody that rode it, tested it, liked it. And I think the results have kind of speak for themselves. With what kind of small group we started with, running the Tricon, being able to win right off the get go, and you're starting to see more show up. I noticed at the Maxx Daddy there was more. You started seeing more and more Phantoms, so that's good. I mean, that's a good thing.
Yeah, I think whenever we had Harold on, and whenever we had David Smith on, and I feel like you've kind of just confirmed it. Testing now compared to testing 10 years ago, you're looking for like hundreds of seconds.
Yeah,
because you're looking for that mechanical grip and that mechanical speed rather than what you were looking for back then.
Yeah, I think and I think it goes back to the tires again. I don't know, and I think Harold might have said it on here. I I don't think he can build anything that's going to run any faster.
Right.
I just don't. I don't think that. I mean, I think we're maxed out on speed.
Yeah.
I think if the speed comes from the tires now, you need a chassis that works, in all situations with now all the different tires that you're going to run. And
You got to have the best base possible.
yes. And, going back to the Triton, coming off of Eddie's go-karts and getting on the Triton, I thought the Triton pushed like a dump truck.
Really?
But I learned to drive that. And back 2013 through 2015, the cart would push first 3-4 laps, but then it would, the right front would start to bite and it would be really good. But also, like we talked about before, the racing has changed so much. You can't start fifth with a go-kart that's going to push for 5 laps. If you do, they're going to knock you off the racetrack. You're not even going to finish the race.
Right.
So the days of riding for 5 laps, waiting on your stuff to run, to come in is kind of gone. If it don't run lap 1, it's not, you're not, odds of winning is not good.
But you got to make sure it runs on lap 20 too.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes. And so, I think the feel of what you're looking for, like while you're testing, you've got to kind of keep that in mind. But ultimately it just came down to taking the carts and running them week after week and, having success on them. And I think we've got a pretty, Harold has a pretty good piece now that, anybody can take and win on.
And you can attest this. I feel like this is the most he's aggressively tested on this go-kart in a while. He had multiple juniors, multiple adults. From my understanding.
Yes. I mean, I know back in the day, it was just, I think the Triton was just Todd.
Yeah.
And Todd's really good. I mean, I think Todd's probably one of the best at riding and filling and, and I know Harold always said that if, Todd, he would, he didn't care. He didn't care which, cart was better, or if you had 5 of them, one wasn't his favorite, or, he wouldn't favor one over the other. He would just tell you what it was and they would move on. Yeah. So, but, also, I mean, I think the tracks, the tires, everything else, I guess you would say other manufacturers, have gotten closer. I get everything's gotten tighter. So, that window is smaller and smaller, to be perfect, I guess. So it's just, in that aspect of it, I guess that goes back to what I said earlier. Like, I feel like the adult stuff today is probably harder to win than it was back then, just because of the way the tires are and everything is today.
Yeah, if anybody wants to say that we haven't kind of maxed out on either tires or chassis, but people wouldn't be making bodies to try and disturb air,
Right. Yeah.
If we had room in chassis,
Yeah.
So that's where we're at with that.
So from an unbiased opinion, I guess we can call it, what has been your favorite Phantom chassis to date?
I would say the Triton, I guess, just because of the success we had on the Triton. The races we won.
Don't kill him, Harold.
But no, I mean the Tricon is, I would say is probably the closest kart to that. I mean, you can kind of do things like to tighten it up, I would say, which kind of puts it more of a feel, gives me the feel that I look for, which sometimes may not be right. But, if you could, it's hard to say, I guess. I don't know that one's really better than the other. It's just, that's what we rode back then, and that's
Yeah,
what
the
we want.
memories on the chassis.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
all
I mean, I
day.
don't really. I guess if you're asking me which one's better or which one would I ride today,
No.
I'd probably say the Tricon.
Yeah,
Right.
that's good for
but
sales.
yeah, well, I mean, no, I mean,
No,
I
I'm just
think the
messing. I'm just
Tricon
messing.
would beat the Triton.
Yeah.
But just as far as memories winning on the kart, the Triton.
Yeah, I mean, I think whenever we had Harold on and he walked us down memory lane, chassis by chassis on this off the wall. He definitely got hung up on the Triton.
Right. And now
For a
the
good
Triton
bit.
was the first fan of my road. So, that, I didn't ride the Phenom or the Icon or, any of those. So, or the Banshee. I raced against them, but, I never rode one. So the Triton was actually the first Phantom that I rode.
Well, we all know you've won a lot of big races, man. What, in your personal opinion, what would you say is your most memorable or biggest win for
Um,
you?
I read through the questions that y'all sent, and I was actually talking to my wife about it yesterday because she was kind of asking me the same thing. And um, I gotta say, one of my favorites all time was 2004, the stadium, and it would have been the last day 4, junior 2. I think I sat on the pole for the day 3, junior 2. I led most of it, and there was a late caution, and Brandon White got by me. I think I finished 4th. And then, but winning day 2 at Daytona, that was just because of what it was back then. You walk up to the top of the bleachers, and you could literally walk trailer to trailer on top of trailer. There was no people having 2 spots. It
There was
was
150 go-karts in a
yeah,
class.
yes. So that was like, memory, one that always stands out. Um, the junior big dog in 06, that one stands out.
Was that at Why Not?
No, that was Carnesville. That was
Carnesville.
Thanksgiving Thunder.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that was the first, actually 06. Oh, 06 was the first time they run the Wayne Pool.
Gotcha. Yeah. I'm
Because I
sorry.
actually ran the Wayne Pool on Friday, and I don't know. I mean, I know I made the race, and I think I finished top 10, but
I was thinking of the Kahuna. I was thinking of
yeah,
the
yeah.
Kahuna.
And then but I won the junior big dog the following the second day of that. And then I guess more recently, the obviously the 20 grand race. I mean, that was big.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was big. The Lucas Oil stuff. There's several that stand out. Like the first time I won the champ Maxx Daddy, I was running Gary's Motors at the time, but I did a throwback to Jody Miller, to Todd's brother Jody.
Gotcha.
I actually had a throwback body to him. Run the number 1. I had his jacket, like all that, so that was kind of cool. The Wayne, winning the Wayne pools, that's something I always wanted to win. I actually have a picture of me and Wayne. I won, I guess it would have been 02. I won junior driver of the year, or most improved junior driver of the year, and he won most improved senior driver. So winning those, and obviously racing with Todd, I mean, I know it means a lot to him, but actually, remembering Wayne and watching Wayne race, remembering him race, that was, those were big. And then obviously this weekend, I mean, what made this weekend, more special, I think, than any other race is that I had my son there.
Yeah. For sure.
That Daytona, they stayed home. Because it's a long week there.
And all the rain and stuff would not have made
Yeah,
it easy.
so they weren't, my wife and my little boy wasn't there for that, but having them there, that I would say that was the best one so far. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
And so, yeah, obviously, if anyone doesn't know, you were number 3 back in the day.
Yeah.
I have an idea where that came from. But recently have gone to the number 9 after leaving the 96.
Yep.
Let's start off with the number 3.
All right.
Is that what we think it's from?
So the number 3, it came from. So my dad was 98.
Okay.
And I was 98. I mean, I want to be just like my dad. I want 98. 2001, we went to the state series, and back then you bought your number. I think it was like $5 maybe.
That was yours. Nobody else ran it.
Yeah, so we went to run, or I guess my dad tried to buy it, and 98 was taken. So he's like, "What do you want to run?" And I think at the time, it came down to 3 and 18. Obviously 3 was for Earnhardt.
Mm-hmm.
18 was Bobby Labonte. My dad's an electrician, and he had just wired. He helped wire Gibbs's shop.
Oh, cool.
And there's a picture of, we actually took my cart there, and Tony Stewart, the Home Depot 20, and the 18, the Interstate Batteries car, were side by side, and my cart and me are in between them.
Oh, that's so cool. That's
yeah.
Cool.
So that, that's kind of what it came down to, and I'm still a big Earnhardt fan. So that's where the 3 came from, and I was 3 up until 96. So and I've thought about going back to 3. But honestly, like with the whole, I don't, my name already gets me enough when it goes to the groups, because the D and the A, if they do it by, if they do it alphabetically,
put a 3 in there, and it's
and
just
then you
the
throw
perfect
3
storm.
in there, you're guaranteed to be an A. So yeah, but yeah.
And the number 9 now for what's up at that?
Yeah, so the 9 come from my wife.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so she ran a late model, and she ran number 9. And then obviously I don't know how many people really know, but the Grand Enfinger in the truck series is my wife's family.
Mm-hmm.
Her grandfather and brother own the 9 trucks. So that's where the 9 came from, starting when Todd told me he was going to go back racing. And because he asked, he said, "Were you going to still run 96?" And I'm like, "No, that's yours." So I was like, "Well, I don't know. What am I going to run?" And then she's like, "Well, run 9, run like the truck, or like she was." So that's where that came from. And the kind of the decals and all, it kind of it's the same as as the truck. Yeah,
it's pretty slick.
Yeah.
Question about that
me now, but her late model. Of course, my little boys played with it, but the orange is
the deck is gone.
The orange is hers, so that's where the orange comes from. But
that's awesome.
But yeah, so that's where the 9 came from.
So, are you a fan of the front forward number?
Yeah. I mean,
well, yeah, it's in his rap.
Yeah, no, that's just
it's different. So, I mean, I just thought it was. I don't know. It's just different.
All right, I'll say this. The forward number is a lot better than that rear number that they ran at the All-Star race the COVID year, because I drove to Bristol and watched that race, and the sponsor being after the number looks a hell of a lot better than the sponsor in front of the number.
Yeah, I just think I didn't really, like on the Cup cars, I didn't really. I thought it looked weird to start with, but now, it's just the new normal. So,
yeah.
No, on the kart stuff, I think Carter actually, I think we both did it. I don't know who did it first. But, it's just different. Matt joked when I did it the first time. He's like, "You'd move your number back to the back, you'd run better." And I'm like, I was like, I don't think that's got anything to do with it. But, yeah, it's just kind of, I stuck with it, and now it's kind of nobody else really has done it. So I mean, it's kind of
Good thing.
I'm gonna keep it. So
For
There
sure.
you go. So, I mean, you were with Todd for a long time, as most of us know, in the '96. What was the decision like to go back on your own?
well, I mean, like I said before, I was kind of on my own.
Yeah,
You know, I guess nobody really, I don't know how many people really knew that. And, because I was, when I talked to Matt about it, I was like, I don't know, how do you really, and he's like, well, just, like races you've won, like, you need to say that it was you, like you were doing the tires and it was, so, I mean, really the last 2.5 years, I mean, like I said, I mean, my stuff, the carts I've rode have come out of my shop. I've been the one doing the tires at home, now did Todd influence some of the decisions as far as what tires to run, at times? Yes. And there's been times that, like I can think of one time at Coleridge when Scott and I was there and he went with us to help and he was convinced we needed to run a newer tire, and I put an older tire on Scott's, and he sat on the pole. And Todd's like, "Wow, like I didn't think that would work." Um, so I mean, it's not. I guess it was a shock to some people. I guess at the end of last year when when Todd started racing again. But it really nothing really changed for me when that happened.
yeah,
It was the same
It's
old
just
thing for me.
the number
Yeah, just
and
the
the body
number for
color.
me. I mean, same. And so really, I mean, it really didn't affect me any, I guess.
yeah, yeah. It like all of us, we were sitting at home watching Daytona, the live stream, and I remember when you hit the track the first time, and I was like, "What? It's not in the '96." It was just a shock, a
Yeah,
shock for
yeah,
me. I didn't know what was going on.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, nothing really. I mean, in that, Todd called and said that he, had decided that they were, he was gonna get a cart and find somebody to drive it and go back racing. And we had talked about it beforehand a little bit, of me driving, so, and him racing, but you know, Todd's all in, when he goes and I don't hold this against him at all, but his opinion, and it doesn't hurt my feelings at all, but his opinion is that by me helping kids and helping the people I help, it takes away from my driving. Because I'm not 100% focused on driving. And I can say that being, you look at Chase now, or, even Shay, they just show up and drive. It is a lot easier. I mean, when you sit around and you don't have to worry about, you don't have the stress of making the right call on tires, or, worrying about if you got a parent that is relying on you to have their kid fast.
And you got the thought of they paid you to get them
Yeah. I
fast,
mean, it's your job. I mean, essentially, it's your job to have their kid fast, and I'm still trying to race too.
Mhm.
So I completely, understand it, and I don't hold that against him, or it doesn't upset me at all. But, in the same sense, it does give me the drive to prove him wrong in a way.
That it's possible.
Yeah. And, it is a lot. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's a lot. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there's times that it might not take away from my racing, where I could be focused on, do I need to set these 3 sets aside and wipe these 3 sets? Well, I'm trying to grab tires for junior 1 and junior 2, and I'm working on them when I could be working on my stuff.
Yeah.
But, also, and I think one of the questions coming up, is about the kids, and that just, I enjoy helping the kids. Little Padula winning this weekend meant as much to me as, me winning both of mine. So, I enjoy it. I like helping the kids. So, that doesn't weigh in on my decisions any, but, that is part of the reason, or, you know, when Todd went racing or said he was going to go back racing, you know, we talked about it and he said that he was going to find somebody. And two, it give us another, you know, another go-kart on the track.
Yeah. Another
You
Phantom
know,
running good, you know?
exactly. So, you know, I think it's worked out good for everybody.
Because you guys have been on fire. That group right there, you know, the 96 and the
Yeah, now
9.
Todd has the Reapers figured out.
Yeah.
I'm slowly catching up. I mean, I felt like I ran really good at Liberty, but yeah, Todd's been on fire with the Reapers. So
Sure. And so kind of going into that, you know, Armstrong Performance. I know this has kind of been around a little bit longer than that 2 year period of you kind of doing it on your own. I believe this was what, 17 or 18 this kind of came around back
yeah, I
with
want to say
Gary.
the end of 15, and honestly, not really realizing what was going on.
Mhm.
And at the end of 15, when I was driving for Todd, we had a kid, Hunt Gossam, from Kentucky, that was coming and racing with us. And, um, you know, Todd, I think we kept his card at Todd's shop, and he would go with us and they would show up. And when when Todd decided he was going to quit again, um, Todd Gossam, which is Hunt's dad, he called me and he's like, "Hey man, you know, what are we gonna do?" And I was like, "Well, I mean, you know, I'm gonna go on my own or race on my own." Um, you know, he's like, "Well, would you want to continue keeping the cart and you know helping Hunt?" And I was like, you know, I said, "Yes, that's fine." And he helped me. I mean, I think he actually you know got me started on my own as far as you know. I think he actually paid for the first couple months of me racing. But that's kind of how it started. And then obviously like he started running really good and winning some races. And they had he had another kid from Kentucky that was interested and wanted to show up and ride. And it's funny, it was Charlie Medford.
Old Charlie.
Yeah, so y'all know him. But yeah, he came around. I mean, he was 8 years old. Um, you know, I think they had basically, you know, ran like backyard tracks really, you know, size wise. And we took him to Carnesville for the first time I ever met him. They show up at the house, we get him, you know, weighed out, everything. We go down to Carnesville and I mean, he was stupid fast. I think he ran over everything. Like, I mean, it was crazy. Then, you know, my dad and I laughed and was, you know, like, you can slow a kid down, but it's hard to make them faster.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think he run over like half the kids, but you know, so then ended up with Hunt and Charlie, um, through I don't know 16 maybe or 7. I don't remember quite the years. Um, and then we ended up. I mean, I don't think really many people remember this, but we ended up switching to Charger for a little while.
I do remember that vaguely.
Yeah. So, you know, and I've always, I mean, I went into Harold's. We went and I sat down in his office, and I told him I told him the reason why. You know, Boomer was going to pay for everything. All I had to do was just work on it and drive it. You know, and he understood, and I left. I think I left on good terms. You know, as far as all that went. And so that's how I ended up picking up Seawright. And now I've helped, you know, James, I think that was 2016, end of 2016. I've helped him or, you know, still do. And it's rare that people race together that long, honestly. But you know, his little sister Jennifer, she still runs, and James is in a car some now. But you know, the Seawrights have been with me for going on 10 years now. So it just kind of evolved. I mean, you know, I guess mistakenly, really. But you know, even when I had Medford Joyner raced with me, for a little while. Like I remember we went to a couple tri-states and they ran 1-2 in the junior pro races.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's been several come through, you know, that I've helped. You know and I enjoy it. I enjoy helping the kids and you know, teaching them how to race and all that. So,
And we'll get into that in here 1 second, but I kind of want to talk about something because You know, it's a thing you think about. You know, I know a couple people, you know, starting to do tires, you know, the one I race with, Ethan Endicott, he's starting to do it. The fact of thinking of like the Matt Connells and stuff like that are not always going to be here. So is there any goal to kind of, you know, retirement is such a scary word and you're nowhere near it, I'm sure, but to be kind of take that role of for the next
Yeah, I don't
generation?
know. I'll be honest with you. I can't give you a time frame or timeline of me racing.
Yeah.
I've always said that if I ever feel like I'm out there and I won't put myself in the right spot or I think about it, then I'm done.
Yeah.
I feel like that. I mean that time obviously comes at some point. I've seen Todd and people like Todd that that race and then they get out for whatever reason, and then they don't race for a year or two and they come back and they're not the same, or it's harder, I guess.
It's like what Jimmy Johnson's doing, you know,
Yeah,
coming back for those
so
one-offs.
like I'll use Jamie like because I always joke like I'm at towards the end, and then there's Jamie.
Yeah.
He's coming up on he's got to be close to 50, and he still wins, two or
I mean,
three times a week.
he just caught a hot streak, you know, this past
Yeah,
couple of
yeah.
years, you know.
So, but the thing about Jamie is he's never stopped. I mean, he's never took a break or from racing. So, um, I guess when you say that, like my end goal with it would be I kind of want to have the same thing that Shay's had with Sawyer.
Yeah.
That's kind of my motivation, and to keep going is that I want my little boy to remember me racing, but then also um I thought about this today was like I guess you look back at like because my dad raced up until I was 8, and then when I really started, when we were going to start running the Nash states and all that, he quit basically and just focused on me. And that's kind of where I guess I would say I'm headed towards.
Yeah.
When it's time for him, if he wants to, when it's time for him to really take off. But hopefully through the red plate years, I can still be able to win
Still
and
chase
him
some
win
max
and
daddies and stuff.
have that same thing that Shay's had.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but working with future stars of our sport, Raylan, Riker, Jane, just to name a few. What made you want to start working with the younger crowd and take on that responsibility?
Well, I guess kind of what we just talked about, the whole, Hunt Gossam thing, teaching him. I mean, when he was with Todd, I mean, he had speed, but he just, he wasn't winning a lot. And when we started helping him and my dad, worked with him some, I want to say, but part of it is it clicked with him, finally.
Mhm.
Understanding how to race and all that. And, I think that kind of started it all. And then just from there, it's kind of just evolved. I don't, I just enjoy it really. I mean, just having, the challenge of taking kids and teaching them and making them better and teaching them how to race and try to show them the right things of when to pass and how to go about it and all that. It's I just enjoy it. So I mean I guess that's why I do it.
If you didn't enjoy it, I don't know
Yeah,
why you would do
and I mean,
it.
I'm part of it. I mean, I'm not gonna, I'll sit here and say, I mean, so the main reason I guess was really so I could afford to race.
Yeah.
You know, like
And
I said when me and Todd quit the last time in 2015, I said, I mean, obviously I was working, and I said if I ever had to take money from my day job to race, then I would just quit. So, part of it is that, I mean, I've helped kids and, adults or whatever, I've done what I needed to be able to afford to race.
for sure.
So
It's a good system, but there has been some situations of bad deals like that. But like if you do it right, it really works out well. You have your people, they run well, they're happy. Obviously, not every weekend. There's going to be some rough weekends
Right. Yeah.
sometimes,
There's ups and downs for sure.
but if you do it correct, everyone leaves the racetrack happy and satisfied. You got your goals done of racing, and they got their goals of running good, where
Yep.
probably couldn't do it on their own.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't and I take a lot of pride in my junior, I guess you'd say junior program. I like I said before, I would rather them win than myself. And like this past weekend, I mean, we've little Anthony Padula, we went to the Chili Bowl and we had a fast cart, but we just pushed. We pushed Braden Chavous, and we never tried to pass. So then we went the next 2-3 weekends, and we really worked on passing and trying, really focusing on that. And so I mean, to see that and to see them grow, and then like for him to win the Maxx Daddy this weekend, I mean that was really big for him. He's 8 years old, and to win it, I mean that was really big for him. So
Show and tell at school is about to go crazy.
yeah, I mean that's probably the most excited I've ever seen him. So, I mean it's just I mean I had a heck of a run with Jaden, for 2 or 3 years there. I mean it just and you enjoy that. You enjoy seeing the kids having fun and making the most of it.
That's not to say though the patience that comes with a junior driver is a virtue.
Yeah, you gotta, and I've been very fortunate too. You gotta have parents that are willing to, criticize and critique, and it's not coming from a bad place. You're trying to help them.
Yeah.
And I've been very fortunate to have parents, along the way that I guess trust me enough to, to work and to do that. So
Yeah. You're not tearing them down, you're building them up.
exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And so, kind of speaking with the juniors and stuff, anybody coming into the sport, do you have any advice? What would be, if you had to restart this with what what would be some advice to somebody coming into the sport?
I honestly have no idea. It is so hard now. For a father that comes in, that just say shows up to the racetrack and his little boy wants to race. Okay, so you go to Phantom, you get the go-kart, you go to Todd, you get the motor. Well, then then it's tires. Well, the sport has evolved so much with the tires that for somebody coming in, they're lost. And I don't, being in the sport, I don't know how you change that. I don't think you can really go back. Because even when I was a kid, you still cut them, you still prepped them. I was fortunate enough to have a dad that, he was in it, but also he worked his butt off to figure it out too. To make me fast. Looking back, you don't realize, I mean, I didn't realize back then, the time that he actually put into it. Of course, because I'd go to bed and, whatever, and he would be in the shop working or doing whatever. But, for somebody new coming in, I don't really know what advice to give. I mean, you got to have the mentality, it's one of two things. Either you pay somebody to do it for you, or you just have to buckle down and figure it out. I mean, that's the unfortunate part about it. I don't know that, in today's world, I don't know how many people really want to buckle down and suffer through figuring it out. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
The competition, the competitiveness of the sport, has really evolved it into a situation of becoming our own worst enemy for new people coming in. That's all what the sport is about, is to find out that next edge, but then everybody catches up, and then the whole sport is leveled to a different level for newcomers, and it makes it a little tough.
Yeah, and I mean, you go to explain if you try to explain to a dad, like I said, you buy this, you buy that. All right, well, now what? Well, you got to scuff tires for 6 months,
Yeah.
before you really have a cycle, or, I mean, it's just, I don't, I mean, the tire problem, I mean, yes, I realize I understand there's a problem, and that hurts the new people coming in. But again, I don't know how you go backwards.
It'd be like
You're
giving
not going to
free.
show up. You're not going to take. I mean, you're not at 12 years old going to just go walk onto a basketball team or a baseball team, and be the best. I mean,
Get free home
you got to
runs, you know?
practice. I mean, you got to work at it, and that's, I think a lot of people just want to be able to show up and win, and it's not how it works.
At all,
But you got to put the time and effort into it too. So
for sure.
Well, I mean, there's pretty much the hot topic of this year has been the tire war going on. Just wanted to get your opinion on what's going on right now and about
yeah,
that situation.
I don't know. I mean, I'm a racer, so
You got to go where you got to go.
I'll race
Yeah.
square tires. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, if we're all running, my thing is, if we're all running the same tire, then then it is what it is. You know, I guess honestly, up until last year, I didn't mind the midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning working on tires 4 nights a week. I mean, I didn't. I mean, I enjoyed that part of it. I mean, I feel like you win your races at home in the shop. So, but having my little boy and all that, and just that opened my eyes to a whole nother, to the parent side of it, I guess, that you are missing. I mean, I would come home, try to spend, because I get up, if I'm gone at 5 to go to work, so I miss him getting out of bed. So then if I didn't come home in the afternoons right after work, and I just went straight to the shop, then I'll miss, and I'm there till 10 or 11, then I didn't see him at all.
Yeah.
So I would plan my day to come home for a couple hours, till he went to bed, and then I'd get back to the shop, and be there till 12, 1, 2, and that's hard. I mean, that's not fair to my wife. That's not fair to him, to my little boy. But at the same time, it paid our bit, some of our bills too. So it's a balancing act. And of course that's talking about Maxxi's. The Reapers, they seem to be less work at home. Whether they meant to do that or not, I think they kind of just stumbled upon, like, I think it's worked out for them. Because you go to the national banquets, and Patty's, she talks about, the whole reason she does the nationals the way she does them, is the 2 sets, is so that the dad can spend time with his family, and then they show up and have the same chance as everybody else. And I think that's kind of what the Reaper tires hit on. I don't know if it's on purpose or mistakenly. You really don't have to do a lot to them to you either get to the racetrack or the day before. So I think, I see both sides of it. From a racing side of it, as long as they're the same, I don't care. But from the I guess kind of what we were talking about too, the Reaper tire does seem to be slightly less work during the week.
A little bit more user friendly.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know, and I'm sure if we talk in a year,
Yeah, we're gonna ruin it. Don't
we're
worry.
going to be right back to working on them all week long.
Yeah, we're gonna ruin it. Just give it time.
So I don't know. I mean, do I prefer one over the other? It doesn't matter. I can say that the Maxxi's are easier on me trying to race because, I mean, I don't think it's no secret. Everybody sands them every time. So, So, when I've got 3, 4 kids racing,
It's a lot of
then
sand.
I've got to sand their tires while I'm racing. Well, I can't do it. I mean, I'm only one person. So,
Yeah.
so the racetrack side of it is harder on the Reapers for me personally. But there's less work at time at home in the shop, you know, wiping, prepping, rolling throughout the week, every tire every week, I mean, so it just, I don't know, I don't know if one's better than the other or whatever, but that's kind of how I see it. I mean, I just run where the group wants to run, really.
It's 4 rubbers, and they all pay pretty dang good money too. So
Exactly. Yeah.
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 So, but so we have this rapid fire segment. It's 5 questions. You pick, and let's get into it.
All right.
Any race day superstitions?
Not really.
No, no green,
No.
no chicken, nothing like that. Nothing.
No, I mean the whole boiled peanuts. I race with 50s in my wallet. Like I
Oh
mean
golly.
I don't really believe in any of
Favorite movie?
that. Days of Thunder.
Beautiful. This goes back in the day though. Leather jacket or suit? If you want them, not to wear. I'm sure suit's way more comfortable.
Jacket to win. I mean, if you're gonna win a jacket, I mean that goes back to the state series. I mean, if you had a red North Carolina State Series jacket in 2002, you done something.
You
I
were
mean,
that
like
guy.
yeah, I mean that meant something. So yeah,
Cool trophy checks or cool trophies?
trophies.
Trophies. And then favorite vacation spot.
Favorite vacation spot. Ah, when we went to Hawaii, that was pretty cool. But I mean, that's a once. I mean, once or twice lifetime trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I'd say West Virginia because that's where my wife's from, and that's if we're not at the racetrack, we try to go home for her. So, that's kind of become my vacation spot, I guess.
Heck yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I guess that kind of goes into the next question. Where can someone find Daniel Armstrong on the weekends you're not racing?
2 years ago, I'd say a racetrack. If I wasn't racing, I was at a racetrack. Nowadays, if we're not racing, my wife, she's 6 hours, or she's moved 6 hours from home. So, and with little man, we try to go home for her, go home as much as we can. So either West Virginia or honestly just around the house. It's opened my eyes up to, there's more than racing. So,
family time is very valuable.
Yes, exactly.
So another thing Matt mentioned in his text to me was you're a huge Dale fan, which we kind of talked about a little bit. You
Yeah,
also have a very big collection of memorabilia. Tell us about that.
I do. Actually, I think for Christmas this year, my wife got me because we live in Kannapolis, so there's a antique store in Kannapolis, and she actually bought a hood. I don't know. I think it was off a 94, one of the cars he ran in 94, but I actually have the hood now of one of his cars. But yeah, so I don't know exactly how it all started. I mean, I liked Earnhardt. My dad liked Earnhardt. I liked Earnhardt. But I just have a ton of stuff that I don't know if my parents bought or like, my uncle. Like, I really don't know. But yes, I do have a fair amount of Dell stuff.
So last year, I don't know if you can see me on your screen.
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
I went to like a little antique store and I found Dale Senior's race version of his last win,
Right.
in a die cast, and I got it for
cool.
$20. And
That's nice.
Perfect condition.
So they're actually at the studio, the shop. He has both the Japan cars too.
Yeah,
nice.
Coca-Colas. Yeah, I worked for Coca-Cola, so that was like the first ones I wanted.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But see, I grew up. DEI is literally 6 or maybe 10 minutes from my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
So, I drive by all the time, DEI and all that. So.
Oh, yeah. So, Alex, he's on like the same level of collecting that I am.
So if you listen to the Dale Jr. Download, go ahead and submit your little collection. to them, and you might get highlighted.
Yeah, there you go.
They started doing that. No, but those antique stores go crazy. Like, you can
Yeah,
go
I
in there
haven't actually went in the one in Kannapolis, but I think my wife's been there 3 or 4 times. So
and especially where you live, it's got to be even crazier than what we have
yeah,
down here, you
yeah.
know?
So
So, going back to racing for a little bit, if you had to pick out something that you really like about the sport, what would it be?
um, I would say family, friends that you make. I know I mentioned the Whites earlier. Brandon won when we raced against each other. I mean, they're from Delaware, but
Mhm.
Brandon won the first day. I won the second day. We are still very close.
Are they
I
related
am
to
with his
Alex?
Alex.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
yep. Alex White. His dad Brian. We text all the time. We actually went last year and stayed at their beach house, and then we actually got a trip planned. They're going to come to my wife's family's town,
Oh, cool.
and we're going to spend some time there and actually go. I'm going to check the Sealands Grove off my list of racetracks
Oh,
that I've
sweet.
never raced at. So, but yeah, we actually got a trip, with them planned. So just I guess lifelong friends, family friends that you meet throughout the the experience of racing and all. So, but and then I guess she's talking to me over here. I met my wife at the road course, actually at Summit Point, the road course. Scott Heath got me into we tried to race the road course stuff for a while. So that, I met her there. So, I mean, I guess, that too. So
Shout out to racing for that. Yeah.
yeah. Road course. So that's, yeah.
Man, it can't be easy sometimes if you make a mistake when your wife has raced herself. Well, ooh, I bet you, I bet you
Yeah,
she
she
can
gets
get
on to me all the time. I talked her into racing one time at Coleridge, and she run the Ducar stuff, and um, she did good the first race, but I just had an old clutch. I mean, I'm gonna be honest, I had an old clutch that I had on it. Well, I guess she burned it up in the first one. So the second one, she couldn't even hardly get off the grid. So we pushed her off. But I mean, she did really good, but she told me she'd never race for me again. So but yeah, so I don't I've tried to talk her into it, but I don't think I'm gonna win that battle now.
So, kind of on the flip side of that last question, what is something you would change about the sport if you were in charge for a day?
I've listened to Matt and I listened to Todd Harold's, I've listened to a lot of y'all's podcasts or and what people say. If I can say two, I think the first one, and this is not gonna call out the promoters, but it's gonna, I think our sport is nothing but gambling.
Yeah.
I feel like, every race you look at, it's sponsored by the same people, the same families, the same cart, the same Todd Miller, PMP, Phantom, Charger. I mean, it's QCS. I'll say Brandon Moore, QCS, or Wendell Chavous and Armor Metals. I mean, it's every week. It's the same people. So I want to challenge the promoters and I understand it's not easy. I get all that, but I would love to challenge them to bring outside money into our sport. I think that, you beat the same horse over and over and over. What happens when Braden Chavous goes and races a car? I mean, I'm not saying he is, but I'm just saying what happens.
Or when Matt retires,
Yeah, you lose that sponsorship. And it seems like there's always been somebody or someone to come along and take that spot, recently. Yeah. But, I really think that for our sport to grow, and I think this podcast, I think the whole live streaming the races, I think that can be a big step into growing our sport. Because I truly believe that our sport has some of the best racing in it, from first to last. It's just that you don't, the outside money, and then, I say it just, I remember being a kid and you tell somebody I race a go-kart and they look at you like you're crazy.
Yeah.
Because people just don't know. But I think that is one thing I would love to see change is the outside, you know, promoters to take the next step and try to get outside businesses or whatever to to pay the purses, or that way
Take a
it's at
weight
the end of
off
the
of the
day it's
racers.
cheaper on us,
Yeah. Yeah.
because right now we just gamble. We're just gambling for the entry for, our money. We're racing for our own money.
Yeah.
So
And I got two things to say right here. And it's kind of tough. We've seen, with Earl, with Lucas Oil come in, we've seen that come in. Batesville has O'Reilly's come in all the time,
right.
every year. And I've been on both sides. My parents ran a racetrack for 20 years, and obviously I'm a racer. It's not easy to win these races and not easy to get ready for these races. Well, if we're working so hard, and I'm not saying the promoters aren't, let's try and go get some outside money. It's easy, in my opinion, it's easier for us to fulfill those payouts and stuff for ourselves. But like you
Right.
said, it's a recyclement that it's gonna start losing
Yes.
recycling.
And I think you see that, honestly. And for a while it got to where every week was a big money race. And I think you see that not that's kind of died. I mean, there still are, but not as many. A lot of times if one promoter canceled or had a rain out, the next one would throw something up because they could have a race.
Yeah.
So I think that the outside money, bringing outside money in would definitely help the sport. And that kind of transitions into my second thing that I would love to see is, talking about the cost of it. And, I think that, and this goes along also with getting people into the sport. I think less classes.
This weekend was perfect.
It absolutely. This weekend was 100% how it should be every weekend.
Yep.
Um,
That's how it used to be.
and I understand even some of the parents I help probably are going to disagree with what I say when I say this. And that's fine because, it's the way our sport is. But, you know, quick story, when I was 8, dad wanted to take me to Daytona. Well, my birthday is the 29th. Junior 1 raced on the 27th. I couldn't run because I wasn't old enough. By 2 days.
Yeah.
WK would not let me race Daytona because I was not 8 years old.
And rules were enforced back then.
Now, if you sign your kid up for red plate, junior 1, 2, and 3, as long as you pay them, they don't care. It's all about entries. I would love to see things kind of go back, dial it back down. And I would say that, what other form of racing do you go to that you run more than one race in a day? There's really not. And I'm not saying one class. I mean, two, like this past weekend, 2 classes. At the end of the day, if you're going to hit the racetrack for 2 classes, then it really only matters 4 times, 2 qualifyings and two main events. And if you were running maxis, you're still going to have people that got a trailer full of tires, got 60 sets. But if only 4 times matter, you kind of can knock that down.
You can go with 10 sets and have a better chance.
The dad that can't afford it, can't afford to have the 60 sets. He still has a chance because it's 2 classes.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would like to see. If anything would change, I think the way the format was this past weekend, and I'm big on kids running their own age. I don't like the whole, but at this point, if you got a junior 1 and he's not running junior 2, he's behind. Because that kid that's running junior 1 and moving up and running junior 2, well, he's learning more because he's with older kids. I know I've talked to Kenny at Maximilian. I've talked to people about it. They have different views. They see it different than I do. But, I really think that junior one age kids should run junior one.
Yep. Totally agree.
And that at the end of the day, less classes means less time on your motor, less on your chassis, less tires, less entry fee. Like, you're not
And
there as long.
I was about to say, and the biggest thing is less time at the racetrack.
Yeah, I mean, if you want really, I mean, less classes solves every problem that everybody talks about, except for cart count.
But
So
I feel like it brings the prestige back of the race, because if you have less classes, it stacks them up in more of a field. So you get back to those 60, 70, 80 cart fields that you got to make it in the show.
yep.
But you go back to the fact that people getting upset because they didn't make it. They don't make it a couple times, then they don't
Yeah,
come.
and I use the Burris race every year, the
Midwest
Midwest
Racing
Racing Champions. You go up there and there's light, medium, and heavy. There's no semi-pro, there's no amateur, like, and there's a ton of people there. And I mean, when you put everybody in one adult class, you have more people in the class. And I just feel like that's where your when I was growing up racing, you went to your local tracks to learn, and everybody went to your local racetracks. And then once a month or whatever, you had a money race, or, back then it was state or national that, everybody went to. And that's where you had your 50, 60 cart fields. And kind of the local racing here is died off. I mean, even I mean, like Liberty, I mean, they pay money every week, I mean, to get people there.
That's the only way you can do it now.
Yeah, exactly. So, I think, the easiest answer that I think is just less classes, and it cheapens everything.
Sure.
But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of people disagree with that, but I mean, that's kind of my opinion on it.
And I'm unsure about your opinion. It's something that I did when I was growing up. I always felt like you ran on either state or national level your age, and you started at the local level, moving up maybe a little early to get your feet wet.
Yes.
But you knew when you went to national and states, like you ran what you ran. That was it.
I had birth certificates. I think my mom had made, and I was one that I moved up. I mean, I was running adults at 14. When I won the junior big dog in 06, that was my last junior 3 race.
Yeah, you said you ran the Wayne pool on the Saturday.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly. And going back to Wayne, it's funny, I have an envelope in my room at my parents' house. And it was back in the Eddie days where Tim Fishel at Coleridge, Tim Fishel won lightweight. Wayne Poole was second, and I was third. And I think I was 13. I have the envelope where my third place envelope where Tim signed it.
That's cool.
But I always ran up but now I didn't run junior 1 and junior 2. If I was running junior 1 at the States, then I run junior 2 at the local tracks. We always ran up, but also it was like, if you moved up, you didn't move back down.
No, that was it.
So, and I think WK being more, of a sanctioning body back then, had a lot of control over it, and really, obviously, because like I told you about me trying to run Daytona, nowadays,
it was set in stone. There was nothing.
I mean, it was you had to on the 20, you had to be that day. The 27th was the first race day. You had to be that age on that day, not the next day. So, that's changed. That's been a big change. But I mean, if you don't do it nowadays, if you don't run both, then you're behind. So
it's the game we have created for ourselves.
Exactly. Yeah.
But Daniel, we can wrap this one up with this last question. We really do truly appreciate you coming and sit down. I've really enjoyed it. Who would you like to thank? Who makes this stuff happen?
All right. Well, first of all, I gotta thank the Lord, for everything that He's put into my life and the people He's put me around. My wife, second, she sacrifices a lot for what I do. And she's given up racing in some aspects of it, to raise our little boy. I mean, she's home with him. We're fortunate enough that she is home with him, all day, but She has given up a lot. But I mean, I think at the same time, saying that she's gained a lot also. But she sacrifices a lot for what I do. My parents, I can't thank my dad and mom enough. Until I had my little boy, I don't think I realized what my dad, what all he's done for me, sacrifices they made. Um, we weren't, I don't think, and I don't know how this would come across, but I don't think we didn't have the most money, but we weren't poor either. I mean, they both had jobs, but now my dad worked, side jobs as an electrician to, so I could run the states and nationals, and he could take me to those races. So I owe a lot to them. Even to up till yesterday. I listened to the Mike Dickerson one, and he talked about his mom and all that she does for him. At home unloading, whatever. Quick story. My mom, she will wash every tire at the racetrack. It makes me so mad when you got kids that are racing and they come off and they're not washing their own tires, and I look over and my mom's washing them. Not that she loves it, she wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's like, that's part of, I try to teach the kids, work on your stuff. But I came home, I got off work yesterday, my shop is still at my parents', and I pull in the driveway. My mom we unloaded the carts on Sunday. My mom has stripped the carts down. She is pressure washing mine, and she has all the rest of them ready to wash. I mean, she has them lined up ready to wash.
That's awesome.
And so that being said, everything that they've done for me, they they do it now, so I can spend more time with my family. But still I get to do what I love. So, I'll never be able to thank them enough. Obviously through the years, everybody that's helped me along the way, from Eddie to Todd, Alan Richardson, just everybody that's been a part of my racing. My wife now, just everything that her and her family, allow me to do and us to do. The sea rights, I don't want to leave anybody out, so I hate to start naming it, everybody along the way, but just, from the Goslings to Medfords, to sea rights, Brandon Morris now with Raylan, little Jaden, just, Jimmy Padula, just everybody that's been along, that's helped me along the way. I can't thank Todd and Harold enough. They have been a big part of my racing for the last 10, 12 years now. So them, and I guess too, like, I want to thank Todd for all of my dad, Todd and Harold, all three of them I would put into, I look up to them as more than just, I mean, as a father figure, but also how, how I want to be to my son, and those friendships and everything that comes along with that. So yeah, and then I guess, Phantom and just everybody that's helped me along the way or put something into my racing.
For sure. Yeah, man. It's crazy. Racing will bring you on great friends, for mentors for life, for racing. It's just crazy the things that can happen. I mean, build a family, it's racing's way more than going in circles sometimes.
And so I guess I need to throw in like Grant County Mulch. I need to thank them, for everything they've done for me. Pap and Titty, my wife's laughing at me because she didn't think I'd say it. But that's her grandparents, but everything they do for me and my race and our family. they're a tremendous, tremendous help and would do anything for us. So, my wife's parents, Thomas and April, they were there. It was really cool. They were there this weekend. So,
Oh, that's even cooler, man.
yeah, so that was awesome. But just my whole family. I mean, my family sacrificed a lot for me to be able to race, and so I mean, just really everybody. Yeah, last but not least, I also want to thank Corey Ingelston. He's been with me for, I don't know, going on 10, 15, at least 12 to 15 years now. Before I raced with Todd, he's been my pit help, the guy that's went with me most weekends if he's not playing softball. You can't find better help than him. He's keeps the cart clean, keeps on top of the gear, he wipes it off, makes sure that nothing, if there's something missing or the lead, the oil, everything, make sure everything's good. He worries about that stuff way more than I would. So, he's one that he's on the backstretch at Possum. He was on the backstretch telling me who was where and what kind of gap we had on the ones behind us. So, I can't thank him enough for everything he's done for me and the friendship we have also. So, with that said, I think that's everybody.
I think that wraps it up tonight, man. I really do appreciate it. We appreciate it, and
Yeah, definitely.
I've enjoyed it.
yeah, and congratulations on the big weekend this weekend. That's one of those weekends where you couldn't even write it out and make it that
Yeah,
perfect.
I call them MC Hammer weekends because he wins all of them more than not. So yeah. I mean that's kind of a joke and say I want to have a Hammer weekend, but and it was neat that I was able to do it, partially with him. So I got to thank Matt too. Matt's been a big part, the last several years, and I think what's made us closer is becoming dads. It's in almost within a year of each other, and just trying to we talk about that a lot. Just trying to be the best we can be for our family. So I got to thank him too.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, thank you so much. Like I said, we really appreciate it. Y'all.
There's one last question we missed.
What was it?
Where's the trophies?
Oh,
so I got them. Hold on. I think they're still in the garage. Hold on. Oh no, they're in here. All right. So I'm not allowed to bring, but like so many trophies to our house. And my dad has recently built a new shop. But
yeah.
That's
awesome. I didn't even know they were doing the bottles of tequila with it too.
Yeah. So I have that, and then I was actually allowed to pick so we built this is my son's playroom thing, but I got some of my old helmets.
A lot of winning in that room.
And then just a few like my nationals. I think I got my Maxx National, and then I've got the Dream, where I won the Dream Champ Buggy and the flat cart the same day. I got those here. So
good point on the trophies. One more question: are we doing 2 helmets or is it going to be 1 helmet?
So I kind of spilled the beans on myself, I guess, of what I had once I realized I was going to get both. I'm going to plan to try to have one as like the smallest helmet you can get. And that'll be William's first helmet.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of my game plan is hopefully to do one I can guess right on the size for him. So when he starts, we'll have matching helmets. That's cool. So that's kind of the game plan. I don't know that, I mean, hopefully I can guess right. So yeah,
he'll fit it eventually,
So at some point, yes.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's the game plan. That's hopefully the plan for that.
That's awesome.
So,
but like I said, Daniel, thank you so much. Y'all have a good night.
Yeah,
I know we ran a little late, but
guys.
we really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you coming on, bud.
Yep.
Congrats again.
Thank you.
I'll be right back, guys.